There's a forgotten corner of the American Southwest, a vast sun-baked basin where the dust devils dance like spectral figures, and the silence is so profound it presses against your eardrums until they ache. Here the landscape is a raw, brutal canvas scarred by the dried-up veins of ancient rivers, cracked and desiccated long before the great droughts of the mid-20th century took their final devastating hold. Buried beneath acres of shifting sand, beneath the relentless, unforgiving sun, lies the town of Athetheria. It wasn't simply abandoned its residents, leaving in a gradual exodus. No, Athetheria simply sank. In the sweltering summer of 1937, after decades of aggressive, relentless water drilling by a booming, unscrupulous mining company called Desert Bloom Prospecting, the very ground beneath Athetheria collapsed. It wasn't a gentle subsidence. It was a sudden, violent implosion, swallowing homes, businesses, and nearly all its inhabitants in a matter of terrifying, chaotic hours. The official government report, hastily issued and quickly forgotten, cited only vague geological instability and an unprecedented karst event. But the scattered, hushed accounts from the handful of shell-shocked survivors spoke of a different, far more unsettling truth. They spoke not of a collapse, but of a deliberate descent. They whispered of the ground breathing a vast living presence beneath their feet, of a deep resonant hum that vibrated through the very foundations of their homes, and of sibilant dry whispers carried on the hot stagnant wind that promised not just death, but an eternal unquenchable thirst. Athetheria was swiftly declared a disaster zone, sealed off by state and federal authorities. Its fate a chilling cautionary tale for any future desert settlement. Its location, despite its once thriving presence, was eventually erased from most modern maps, lost to the relentless shifting sands and the collective amnesia of history. This story begins with Dr. Elias Thorne, a 48-year-old seismologist and geoarchaeologist from a specialized, privately funded research institute known only as the Veritas Foundation. Elias wasn't a man driven by the mundane pursuit of dusty relics or the glimmer of buried gold. He was a scientist consumed by anomalies, unexplained seismic signatures, gravitational disturbances that defied known physics, and geological phenomena that utterly shattered conventional understanding. Athetheria, with its sudden, inexplicable disappearance, its cryptic history, and its lingering, unsettling rumors, represented the ultimate anomaly for him. Decades of satellite imaging from classified archives showed absolutely no trace of the town, just an unbroken expanse of desert. Yet in his relentless pursuit of the truth, Elias had unearthed the trove of cryptic, heavily encrypted data logs from the defunct Desert Bloom Prospecting Company. These logs detailed not geological shifts, but seismic pulses of impossible magnitude, emanating from deep within the earth, precisely where Athetheria once stood. These weren't the chaotic, unpredictable tremors of earthquakes. They were rhythmic intelligence signals, almost like the slow, deliberate heartbeat of a leviathan. He also found a peculiar, highly advanced, and completely unidentifiable drilling schematic, meticulously rendered, labeled ominously Project Ether. This schematic depicted a drilling apparatus designed to penetrate far, far beyond the typical water table into layers of the earth no human technology had ever been intended to reach. Elias believed with a certainty that bordered on obsession that this Project Ether held the chilling key to what truly terribly swallowed Athetheria. He never intended for his expedition to be a mere academic excavation. He certainly never intended for the earth itself to whisper his name. But fragments of his journey, his desperate, harrowing descent, into the consuming Earth survived captured. On his ground-penetrating radar's internal memory, meticulously transcribed from his autonomous drone's audio logs, and ultimately retrieved from the final shattered black box recorder remarkably intact, found weeks later miles from his mysteriously abandoned vehicle. The first definitive sign that something was irrevocably wrong didn't come in the form of a ghostly apparition materializing from the heat haze or a sudden, unexplained chill in the oppressive desert air. No, it came from the ground itself. Deep insidious sensation that bypassed his scientific instruments and resonated directly within his very being. Elias had meticulously deployed his advanced portable seismic array, a carefully spaced grid of highly sensitive geophones spread across the vast, featureless basin. The sun beat down relentlessly, a merciless golden hammer on the cracked parched earth, and the air was still oppressive thick with the scent of dry dust and distant baked rock. His state-of-the-art equipment, designed for precise detection of subtle geological shifts, hidden water tables, and intricate rock strata, was instead picking up something entirely different, something utterly anomalous. A faint, incredibly low-frequency vibration, rhythmic and impossibly deep, resonating from far, far beneath the ground. It wasn't the chaotic, unpredictable signature of natural seismic activity. It was too regular, too intentional, too alive. It felt distinctly like a pulse, a colossal, slow, deliberate pulse, thrumming from the very heart of the earth. He spoke into his field recorder, his voice calm, measured, almost detached in its scientific professionalism, though a subtle undertone of profound curiosity, tinged with nascent unease, was already present. August 12th, 9:15 a.m. Location: Athetheria Basin. Initial seismic readings are anomalous, detecting persistent low-frequency vibrations originating from significant depth. The source is rhythmic, unlike any known geological activity. Resembles a biosignature, if such a classification worked. Utterly absurd in this context. Atmospheric pressure is stable, but a strange, subtle static charge appears to be building in the air around the array. We'll continue monitoring and refine sensor calibration. He paused, listening intently to the faint, almost subconscious thrumming that vibrated up through the soles of his specially insulated boots into his very core. It wasn't just a reading on a screen. It was a physical sensation, an undeniable feeling that the earth itself was alive, and it was watching him. Hours passed. Under the brutal, unyielding sun, it climbed to its zenith, then began its slow, agonizing descent towards the western horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and crimson. The rhythmic pulse from below grew stronger subtly, almost imperceptibly at first, then with increasing clarity, accompanied by new, faint, almost inaudible whispers carried on the dry, hot wind. They weren't distinct words, not yet, just a breathy, sibilant sound like dry, brittle leaves skittering across baked rock or fine desert sand, whispering ancient secrets as it sifted through unseen crevices. Elias tried to dismiss it as a trick of the wind, an auditory hallucination brought on by the relentless heat and the cumulative exhaustion of his long journey. But the sounds persisted, weaving in and out of the rhythmic thrumming of the earth, becoming more defined, more insistent. His sophisticated equipment, meanwhile, registered increasingly erratic magnetic fluctuations across the entire basin, and the static charge in the air grew so intense that the fine hairs on his arms and the back of his neck stood on end, prickling with an unnatural energy. His advanced ground-penetrating radar, after hours of sweeping the vast subterranean landscape, finally locked onto a major, undeniable anomaly, a colossal, perfectly circular void, hundreds of meters below the surface directly, beneath the exact coordinates where Athetheria should have once existed. It wasn't a natural cave system, nor a common geological fissure. It was too perfectly formed, too impossibly large, its edges too smooth and defined. And from its very center, the rhythmic pulse intensified to a palpable throb, along with a faint, eerie luminous glow, captured by the radar's thermal imaging. It wasn't the signature of heat, not thermal energy in any conventional sense, but unmistakable light. A deep, impossible orange, like the smoldering heart of cooling magma, but somehow terrifyingly intrinsically organic. He whispered into his recorder. Again, his professionalism now completely fractured, replaced by undisguised awe and a growing profound dread. The void, it's immense, artificially shaped, and it's undeniably luminous. A deep pulsing orange. The pulse is emanating directly from its core. The whispers, I can hear them clearer now. It's like the ground is calling. The old desert bloom logs mentioned the hum that preceded the collapse. This is it. This is the source. This is what truly swallowed Athetheria. A cold metallic taste filled his mouth, the taste of burgeoning terror. Driven by a dangerous, irresistible combination of scientific curiosity, fueled by the sheer impossibility of his discovery, and a burgeoning icy fear that chilled him to the core, Elias meticulously located the precise epicenter of the pulsing orange anomaly. The ground directly above it was subtly, unnervingly different, a shallow, almost imperceptible depression, a vast circular indentation where the sand seemed unnaturally thin, almost fragile, as if stretched taut over an immense unseen cavity. He deployed his specialized geodrilling probe, a compact high-frequency sonic drill designed for minimal surface impact and deep penetration. The drill hummed with a low, powerful whine, its diamond-tipped bit biting into the dry, sun-baked earth with surprising speed. As it sank deeper, the orange light from below intensified, pulsing up the drill shaft, growing brighter, more insistent. The whispers, which had been faint before now, became clearer, more distinct, weaving directly into the rhythmic thrum of the earth, an insistent, sibilant murmur that seemed to coil around his very thoughts. Suddenly, with a terrifying, agonizing groan that seemed to reverberate through the very air, the ground beneath the drill collapsed. It wasn't an explosive rupture, but a deep, implosive sigh, a vast sucking sound as hundreds of tons of dust, sand, and pebbles cascaded into the newly formed sinkhole. Elias, reacting with a primal surge of adrenaline, scrambled backward, tearing his protective suit on jagged rock, narrowly avoiding being swallowed by the yawning maw that had just appeared. The hole was not ragged, not the chaotic result of a natural collapse. Instead, it was a perfectly circular aperture, roughly 15 meters in diameter, descending into utter, lightless darkness. A profound, earthy smell, unlike anything he'd ever known, wafted up from the depths, like ozone-wet soil and something unidentifiably, disturbingly organic. The orange light pulsed from below, a beacon in the black, revealing walls that were not rough natural earth, but smooth, almost polished rock, rippling with what looked disturbingly like ancient fossilized patterns, vast and intricate. He edged cautiously to the very lip of the gaping hole, his high-powered headlamp cutting a solitary beam through the oppressive gloom. The rhythmic pulse from below was now a truly physical force, vibrating the air around him, making his teeth hum and his vision subtly blur. The whispers were louder, an incessant, sibilant murmur that seemed to emanate from all directions at once. From the very walls of the sinkhole itself, from the seemingly empty air. They weren't words in any human language, but a vast, terrifying chorus of ancient sighs, a profound lament for something lost, or perhaps a chillingly patient invitation to something found. Elias instinctively activated his high-resolution aerial drone, a sleek, compact device, lowering it slowly, meticulously into the lightless abyss. Its powerful cameras streamed back immediate chilling images of the impossibly smooth shaft plunging hundreds of meters down into the Earth's belly. And then at a depth where no man-made structure should have existed, the drone's intense LED spotlight hit something. Not bedrock, not a natural geological formation. The very top of a structure. It was the spire of a building impossibly preserved, its delicate architectural details still visible despite being completely encrusted with a strange, dark, glistening mineral that shimmered faintly in the drone's harsh light. It was unmistakable. It was the remains of Athetheria, but not collapsed, not shattered. Instead, it was remarkably intact, as if the entire town had been carefully, deliberately lowered into this colossal subterranean chamber. As the drone descended, further entire rooftops, then upper stories, then street-level storefronts, meticulously emerged from the gloom, all uniformly covered in the same strange, dark, glistening mineral. The pervasive orange glow from deeper below illuminated the scene, making the sunken town appear as if it floated in a vast, dark subterranean ocean waiting. "My God," Elias whispered into his recorder, his voice strained raw with a mix of pure, unadulterated awe and bone-deep dread. "Athetheria, it's down here, perfectly intact, encased in something, and it's glowing. The whole town pulsating with that orange light. It didn't just collapse, it was taken by something." The whispers grew urgent, insistent, now twisting and coiling. In his mind, drawing him closer to the edge of the sinkhole. The very ground beneath his feet began to thrum with a subtle, unnerving pull, a magnetic gravitational force emanating directly from the sinkhole, from the perfectly preserved sunken town below. It was a beckoning and irresistible invitation into the unknown. Against all sane judgment, against every fiber of his being that screamed at him to flee, Elias found himself compelled. The irresistible pull from below, combined with the insidious, pervasive whispers, overrode his instincts. He began to prepare for descent. He meticulously anchored a specialized rappelling rig to his heavy-duty research vehicle, a powerful all-terrain rover parked a safe distance from the sinkhole's edge, double-checking every carabiner, every knot, every inch of the reinforced climbing rope. The air at the lip of the sinkhole was thick, heavy, with a profound earthy scent now tinged with a faint metallic tang. The orange light pulsed from below, a vast subterranean sun, its rhythm a slow, deliberate heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with his own. As he carefully lowered himself into the yawning maw, the rhythmic thrum grew, deafening, vibrating not only through the ropes he clung to, but through his entire skeletal structure, resonating deep within his bones. The whispers no longer merely background noise coalesced not into coherent language, but into direct, terrifying transfers of raw sensation into his mind. Profound hunger, unimaginable ancient solitude, an endless patient wait that had spanned millennia. His specially reinforced boots touched down on the sloped, mineral-encrusted roof of a 3-story building, its original terracotta tiles, remarkably intact, but now completely covered in the same strange, dark, glistening mineral that seemed to permeate everything in this abyssal space. The orange glow permeated the entire subterranean chamber, a vast, unimaginable cavern stretching into unseen distances, illuminated solely by the city itself, a self-luminous buried monument. Athetheria was a ghost city perfectly preserved beneath the earth, its structures eerily still undisturbed by time. But it wasn't dead. No, the rhythmic pulse originated from everywhere. From the very walls of the cavern, from the buildings, from the very air, from the ground beneath his feet. It was alive. He moved cautiously across the mineral-coated rooftop, his headlamps sweeping the strangely glistening facades of the adjacent buildings. Windows were intact, but opaque, completely covered with a dark reflective coating reflecting the eerie orange glow like countless unblinking eyes. He found an open doorway, likely a consequence of the rapid descent rather than the collapse, and carefully made his way inside. The interior was a frozen tableau of 1930s. Life perfectly preserved furniture, covered in a fine layer of dust, and the pervasive mineral-framed photographs on walls, untouched belongings on tables. But the silence inside was chilling. No dust motes danced in the air currents. No echoes returned his cautious footsteps. Just the rhythmic pulse and the omnipresent sibilant whispers, now intensely focused, direct a constant pressure against his consciousness. He continued deeper into the sunken city, drawn by the intensifying orange light, until he reached what must have been the town's central square. The orange light was brightest here, a pulsating heart emanating from a cluster of several perfectly circular, impossibly deep wells. These weren't traditional narrow water wells dug by human hands. They were far too wide, too smoothly formed, their vast dark interiors glowing with that same organic orange luminescence. They hummed with a low resonant frequency, a deeper, more profound note within the rhythmic pulse of the entire city. Elias realized with a cold, sickening dread that solidified in his gut that these were the source of the Desert Bloom Prospecting Company's water wells. But they hadn't found water. They had tapped into this, into something vast, alive, and utterly alien. As he approached one of the largest, most intensely glowing wells, the whispers intensified, dramatically focusing directly into his mind, bypassing his auditory senses entirely. They were not malicious, not aggressive, but possessive, ancient, a vast, patient consciousness communicating its intent. You are thirsting. We have sustenance. Join us. The words were not spoken aloud, but imprinted directly onto his consciousness. Terrifyingly clear, undeniable. He felt a profound, aching sense of emptiness within himself, a deep, pervasive void that the entity seemed to be calling to, promising to fill with its light, its resonance, its terrifying unity. Elias stumbled backward from the glowing well, the mental invasion overwhelming, an insidious violation of his very being. The entity's whispers, now a relentless internal monologue, promised solace, profound understanding, unity with something vast, an ancient end to his individual struggles, replacing them with a terrifying, seductive sense of belonging. His suit's sophisticated biomonitors flashed frantic, alarming warnings: heart rate, dangerously elevated neurological patterns, wildly erratic brainwave activity showing a disturbing predominance of delta waves, the state typically associated with deep sleep or complete unconsciousness, even though he was wide awake, lucid, and utterly terrified. The entity was actively manipulating his physiology, not with brute force, but with a subtle, terrifying precision, attempting to dismantle his resistance, to prepare him for assimilation. He forced himself to regain composure, activating his portable Brown penetrating radar again, pointing its emitter directly into the glowing well. The screen flared with impossible off-the-charts readings. The well wasn't just deep. It extended for miles, perhaps hundreds of miles beneath the earth, a direct pulsing conduit to an unimaginably vast living organism. The orange light, he now understood, was its very essence, its conscious awareness permeating the entire subterranean void, a visible manifestation of its thought. And then the radar picked up something else, something that made his blood run cold. Within the glowing depths of the well, thousands of anomalous signatures, irregular, yet distinctly patterned, pulsed with the same organic orange light. They were undeniably biological, and they were undeniably human. The townsfolk, he gasped into his recorder, a horrified realization dawning with sickening clarity. His voice was a strained whisper, barely audible over the thrumming. They didn't just die in the collapse. They were absorbed. Their consciousness, their very bodies integrated into this thing. The missing people of Athetheria, they're here. The whispers, in his mind, intensified further, no longer just sibilant murmurs, but now taking on fragmented, echoing forms of human voices. Not distinct words, but chilling inflections, raw emotions. Terrified pleas for help. A child's desperate, forlorn cry. A mother's lament infinitely prolonged. They were the trapped echoes of Athetheria, thousands of individual souls, forced into eternal, unwilling chorus with the vast, consuming entity below. As he stared, paralyzed by horror, into the glowing depths of the well, a single hand, slowly, deliberately, rose from the depths, perfectly preserved, utterly intact, coated in the dark, shimmering mineral that consumed the city. It pulsed with the entity's internal orange light, a beacon of unspeakable horror. It was a woman's hand, delicate yet strong, her wedding ring still glinting faintly on her finger. It reached out, not threateningly, not with aggression, but with a horrifying, desperate invitation, echoing the insidious whispers in his mind. Come, be quenched, be whole, become part of us. The fingers twitched, beckoning him closer, a silent, terrifying command. Elias stumbled back, repulsed, a guttural cry caught in his throat. He bumped hard against a large, familiar-looking object, half submerged in the mineral coating the square. It was a heavy, industrial-grade drill head, part of the Desert Bloom Prospecting Company's original mining equipment, abandoned and now half swallowed by the encroaching mineral. It was massive, its diamond-tipped bits dull and corroded by time. And something else, something alien. This was the very drill that had broken through, that had awakened or exposed the entity to the surface world. A desperate, illogical, yet strangely compelling thought formed in his mind. If this drill had opened the path, could it somehow be used to seal it? Or perhaps more violently, to wound the entity, to disrupt its terrifying vast harmony? It was a glimmer of defiance against overwhelming odds. The beckoning hand from the well solidified further, stretching out its glowing fingers, almost touching the very edge of the square. Its palm, as it reached, revealed a faint, intricate, almost pulsing glyph carved into its surface. It wasn't human. It was unmistakably alien, ancient, resonating with a terrifying, unknown power, a symbol of the entity's true cosmic nature. The entire central square around him began to pulse with a new, stronger energy, a powerful tremor originating from the well itself. The orange light intensified, momentarily blinding him, saturating his vision with its unholy glow. The whispers in his mind shifted, no longer a seductive invitation, but a forceful, undeniable command. You will join. You will provide the missing frequency. Your harmony will complete ours. He felt the ground beneath him begin to tremble with a deep resonant undulation, not violently, but slowly, inexorably. The entire city, the entire basin, seemed to be vibrating, sinking, being drawn deeper into the earth. The entity was not just consuming passively, it was moving, its colossal form shifting, perhaps attempting to pull him into its very core, into the blinding source of that orange light where the assimilation would be absolute, irreversible. The air grew impossibly heavy, like breathing through thick, viscous liquid, pressing in on his lungs. His eyes darted frantically, desperately searching. Between the beckoning, horrifying hand and the well, and the immense silent drill head, he spotted a single, narrow fissure in the cavern wall. A geological weakness, almost imperceptible. A path he hadn't noticed until this desperate moment. It was far too small for him to enter easily, but his compact autonomous drone, still attached to his utility belt, was slender enough. If he could send it, if it could navigate the fissure and carry a message. A final coherent warning about what truly lay beneath Athetheria before he was inevitably consumed. He lunged for the heavy industrial-grade drill head, his mind a maelstrom of racing thoughts. It was too massive to move, but perhaps he could trigger something within its complex machinery. Its core power unit, designed for incredible energy output for subterranean penetration, was still faintly humming, powered by an internal experimental battery cell, miraculously still holding a charge after decades. If he could overload it, create a catastrophic feedback loop, a chaotic burst of energy, it might be enough to disrupt the entity's resonance too. Create the cacophony of disharmony that Dr. Elias Thorne's long-lost logs had hinted at in Athetheria's final cryptic records. It was a long shot, a desperate, impossible gamble against an ancient, hungry force that dwarfed all human comprehension. The hand from the well stretched further, its glowing fingers, almost touching the very edge of the square, beckoning him into the orange light. The whispers became a deafening chorus of fragmented human screams, the desperate, dying echoes of Athetheria's citizens, now part of the entity's horrifying, unending song. He could feel his own consciousness beginning to fray at the edges, the delicate boundaries of his mind blurring, his individual thoughts merging with the vast collective agony and the alien intelligence that permeated everything. The ancient entity was not just consuming him, it was tasting him, preparing him, savoring him for the final, ultimate assimilation. His fear was being replaced by a chilling, seductive resignation. He had to choose. Fight and risk being consumed with utter, agonizing clarity. Or run, and perhaps leave a final desperate warning for a world that would never believe him. What will Elias Thorne choose as the ancient entity of Athetheria prepares to claim him its whispers, promising an eternal thirsting unity? Will the massive drillhead be his weapon, his salvation, or simply another monument to the ground's insatiable hunger? And what dark cosmic purpose does this vast, conscious entity serve, hidden for eons, beneath the forgotten town, waiting for the unwary to sink into its depths?